unwalkable. Hospitals were completely flooded with wounded people.
Children were crying, people were shouting, many people injured, running through the streets, trying to get to hospitals. Others abandoned their cars in the traffic.
And those strikes came without evacuation warnings. So people really had no chance ahead of time to get out from the radius of a prospective target. And that's really what led to such a high toll of 350 plus people that were killed. There are people even today that are being pulled out from underneath the rubble, days later. And roughly 110 of them were either women, children, or elderly. So a third were within kind of a non-combatant age range. And we know, of course, of men, military age men as well, that were civilians that were killed in those strikes.
This is a crime, says this municipality official. The state has to do something. It's a residential area. There's nothing here. Why does it need to be damaged like this?
What kind of life does it need to be? We don't know what will happen in the next hour.
Israel is just a genocide country.
The last thing we can imagine is this kind of attack occurring in the center of Beirut.
So on Thursday, the day after this day of really heavy bombardment across Lebanon, I visited a hospital morgue where families were coming to identify their loved ones who had been killed the previous day. And it was really horrific for families who, for some of them, were still looking for another loved one that was still missing under the rubble while they were trying to identify, someone they already had confirmed had died. So it was a really gruesome day for a lot of Lebanese, and one that I think will unfortunately go down Lebanon's very bloody history.
There's been fighting between Israel and Lebanon since, I believe, the foundation of Israel in 1948. What feels different this time?
The scale of displacement is massive. What the Israeli military has done for the past 6 weeks is issue these evacuation orders for entire towns, you'll look at the map and they'll kind of have an entire section of
forced displacement is a war crime.
Cumulatively,
talk about it like it's normal, but forced displacement is a war crime.
Of Lebanese territory. So imagine 15% of the country now essentially being forcibly displaced into other parts of the country
which
where
is a
they're now
war
even
crime.
More densely populated.
You said the words forcibly displaced, but can you just follow it up with saying it's a war crime?
People from southern Lebanon will not be able to return to their villages until Hezbollah is disarmed. That trade-off is something that hasn't been explicitly laid out before. And what that means is there's the prospect of long-term displacement for people. We've seen the targeting of paramedics, hospitals, public infrastructure. And then we've seen the Israeli military also explicitly lay out this line, the Litani River, which runs about 30 kilometers north of Lebanon's border with Israel.
When you say the targeting of those things, it's kind of downplaying the fact that they murder them. That's going to constitute the border of a new buffer zone that they're going to implement in southern Lebanon. So this idea that there's going to be some kind of prolonged, I think Israel needs to be
Israeli
a buffer
military
zone
role in Lebanon to enforce this buffer zone, that's explicitly new as well.
One thing that feels very different to me is these videos of mass detonations of entire neighborhoods. You're looking at these beautiful communities just being destroyed.
There were some detonations that were happening like that in the 2024 war between Israel and Hezbollah. But this time around, we're seeing it as part of a bigger pattern. That pattern is essentially laid out again by the Israeli military and the defense minister, who are saying that there will be no homes in southern Lebanon along that border strip. So they've explicitly laid it out as a policy.
Nazi Putin radio
Kat said, quote,
normalizing genocide.
If there is terror and rockets, there will be no homes and residents, and the IDF will remain inside.
And all the houses in the villages close to the border will be demolished, according to the model of Beit Hanun and Rafah in the Gaza Strip, in order to remove, once and for all, the threats.
But from the international humanitarian law perspective, it's a war crime to do this wholesale destruction.
Oh, just from the international law perspective,
so
just that.
Hezbollah launched those initial
it's a war crime. Let's just throw it in there. Asterisk war crime.
On March 2nd. For what it says are a couple of different reasons. First of all, it says that it was in retaliation for the killing of Khamenei in Iran. It says that the group has basically depleted its patience after 15 months of continued Israeli strikes when there was supposed to be a ceasefire during that time. On Monday, Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem gave a rare televised address.
We reject negotiations with the Israeli entity. These negotiations are futile and require Lebanese consensus to shift our approach from What is this humiliation that Lebanon is facing directly?
They said the Lebanese government should have canceled those talks and should not have gone ahead with them.
Right, you and I are speaking on an historic day because Israel and Lebanon are having direct talks in Washington, D.C., which apparently hasn't happened since before I was born in the early 1980s. What are they talking about?
Even the question of what the two sides are there to talk about is something that they don't agree on, which tells you how well we expect these talks to go and how much we expect them to actually produce.
So nothing.
So Lebanon actually extended the hand first. They said about a week into this war, the Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, said that he was willing to hold direct talks with Israel, and he got no answer for over a month. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded last week and said, after repeated requests by Lebanon, we're willing to hold these direct talks, and I've instructed my cabinet to prepare for them. But the difference is what each side thinks that they're there to talk about. Lebanon wants to have a ceasefire first. So Lebanon says, we're happy to talk about everything, put everything on the table.
Stop bombing
we reported
us.
Earlier in March that President Aoun was even willing to talk about normalizing ties. But the first thing that we need as a precondition for these talks is a ceasefire. Now, when the negotiations started between the U.S. and Iran via Pakistan, and they announced
They negotiated a ceasefire
to
with
allow for
Lebanon.
talks, Lebanon said, that's what we want. We want exactly that framework.
And
we
that's
want
what
the
they
Pakistan
got.
model.
No, they already got that in the Pakistan model.
We want to have a ceasefire first.
It already
so that we
existed
can
in the
actually
Pakistan
start
model.
talking productively as opposed to having
But you want to
bombs
give Trump's
flying
side of the
this way.
story because you're Nazi
What the
Putin
Israelis
radio.
are saying actually is that they want to discuss the full disarmament of Hezbollah, and they want to discuss peace relations. And they said, we're not there to talk about a ceasefire. So we're not having these talks in Washington over a ceasefire. And this is why there's a pretty pessimistic view in Lebanon around what this meeting is going to produce, because the two sides are coming at it with completely different agendas of what they're there to talk about.
There is a lot of negotiating going down, whether or not it's going to make a meaningful difference or not in the immediate future. But I wonder just what is the best possible outcome from a Lebanon-Israel ceasefire?
Turn Israel into some type of buffer zone.
Ceasefire. And then I guess
Make a caretaker state, take over
I
Israel.
think there are much more negative and pessimistic scenarios than there are optimistic scenarios.
Best situation is Israel government ceases to exist.
Really, in terms
Just
of
be realistic
the
about what the best
right
situation
now
is.
one that there is a pretty serious fear that if the Lebanese army or Lebanese state security forces, whoever they may be, were to try to disarm Hezbollah by force, it would ignite a civil conflict.
Why not just fight
based
Israel,
off
the
the
one
idea
bombing
that
your
on
country?
the one hand, Hezbollah draws most of its support predominantly from the Shiite Muslim community in Lebanon, and they're the ones that have borne the brunt of this conflict. And they're pointing to the south and they're saying, the only armed actor right now that's defending my village and is pushing back Israeli troops from my village is Hezbollah. I would like for the Lebanese army to be the one doing that, but it's not. It's Hezbollah. And so what the Lebanese government is saying is we need time to be able to negotiate a decommissioning of these weapons, possibly the integration of these fighters into Lebanese security forces, whatever that picture might end up looking like. We need time to be able to do it peacefully without internal conflict that pits Lebanese against Lebanese.
That's the worst case.
This is the worst case scenario. The Lebanese Civil War erupted on April 13th, 1975. A lot of people are talking about it.